Have you ever wondered why the world is the way it is? Why there is brokenness and division, loneliness, wars? Well, we often long for the world to be better than it is. And this points us to the reality of the story of the Bible. You see, the world was not always this way. The story of the Bible begins with a king and his kingdom. You see, God created the world as a perfect place where life with him under his rule and reign was perfect and satisfying. It was the good life under the good rule and reign of a king and his kingdom. But the story of the Bible continues on that mankind, specifically Adam and Eve, chose not to live under God's rule and reign, but instead they chose to rebel. In the Bible, this rebellion is often called sin. We often can also refer to it as brokenness, but this rebellion created life as we know it today. Suffering, disease, relational conflict was a result of our rebellion and a desire to create our own kingdom and live as our own king. We all deal with rebellion in many different ways. Some of us try just to live better lives, to be moral people, to fix the brokenness in our world through policies and politics. But we find the rebellion deep within us, something that we cannot run away from. The story of God doesn't end there. He sees our rebellion, he sees our brokenness, and he chooses to enter into that rebellion through the story of the cross. You see, God knew that we could not take care of our own predicament through our own good works, that we would always fall short. And so God sent Jesus to live the life we should have lived, to die the death we should have died, and to raise from the dead so that the consequences of our rebellion could be restored through Christ. The story of the Bible is that Jesus has made a way for us to become right with God and to live life under God's kingdom. But just because we know the cross, just because we know about Jesus and the reality of his life, death, burial, and resurrection, doesn't mean we're Christians, doesn't mean that we are living life under his rule and reign. But it's an opportunity to receive the gift of salvation by grace. Salvation is a gift. It's not something we can earn. It's not something we can achieve. It's something that must be received. The story of the Bible is one in which we add nothing to it. Like a flu shot, there is a recognition that we have a need, but a recognition doesn't solve the problem. Going back to the illustration of the flu shot, we must take that flu shot. We must receive that gift by grace in order to be a part of God's kingdom. The last part of the story of the Bible is a return to living under God's lordship, God being king in the kingdom. Salvation, this gift that we receive, is not just what we're saved from, but it calls us to return to living life under God's rule and reign. That because we have received this great gift, we can no longer live for ourselves, but we return to live for God's king and under God's kingdom. This is the story of the Bible. We call this kingdom, cross, and grace. It's a gospel map outlining how we can be made right with God and return to living for the King and his kingdom, longing for the day when he will fully return and make all things